Hey guys, today's video I'm going to be talking about how to avoid hitting the wall in the marathon. It's a very difficult objective for a lot of athletes because most marathoners at least once in their career have experienced what it feels like to hit the so-called wall. And I say so-called wall is because you don't really necessarily have to experience it. And I think that a common mistake that we all make as endurance athletes is we don't spend enough time focusing on our hydration practices and as well as eating the proper foods, getting the proper rest, and training at the specific paces that we're aiming to race at. The problem is a lot of times when it comes to racing and preparing for the marathon distance, we experience the wall because we have not spent sufficient time training at our anaerobic threshold for long periods of time. Yes, we can go out and we'll do tempo runs for 4 to 6 miles. The real key to be better prepared for your marathon distance and to not experience the wall is to get really efficient and more immersed down in your goal race pace, whether that's a 6:52 mile pace and you're trying to break the 3-hour marathon, or you're trying to run 3:10 or 3:20 to 3:45 per kilometer for the entire distance, is spending a longer period of time training at your anaerobic threshold. That's right around 165 beats to 174 beats per minute. And if you have not trained the body properly to burn fat at race pace and to conserve carbohydrates, you're going to have a very difficult time being able to sustain pace for the entire distance. And a big reason why we hit that so-called wall is our bodies run out of glycogen. You run out of sugars. And so it's very, very important that you're training properly in your preparation prior to getting to the big race. I talk a lot about in my other videos about a 10-day taper rather than a 3-week taper. There's a lot of things that go into preparing for a marathon properly. And it took me many years to get this right. I didn't just run a 2:19 marathon overnight. I had a lot of ebbs and flows, a lot of setbacks and disappointments along the way, just like you and just like any other athlete. It doesn't matter if you're a 5-hour marathoner or you're a sub 3-hour marathon athlete. One of the biggest reasons why I was able to break that 2:20 barrier, 2-hour and 20-minute barrier, was because I had trained very, very long periods of time at a higher heart rate, spent sufficient time training at that anaerobic threshold, and I also spent a great deal of my time training at my VO2 max effort. Now, when you're training at your VO2 max, those are those really hard anaerobic workouts on the track where you're doing, repeat 600s, repeat Ks, repeat miles, repeat 2 miles, where you're training closer to your 3K to 10K race pace. That is very, very key. The more efficient that you can train that anaerobic capability in your energy systems, the anaerobic energy systems of the body, the more economical and more efficient you're going to be able to run, and you're going to be able to burn fat more efficiently at race pace, and to be able to conserve that needed carbohydrate that you need in that last 10K of the marathon distance. I experienced numerous marathons, Columbus, New York City, numerous other marathons where I dealt with hitting the wall too. And a big reason why also athletes hit the wall is because they're running far too fast. They have not prepared properly to be able to sustain that race pace they're going after. Maybe they're trying to break a 4-hour marathon, which is 9:09 per mile pace, but they're running the first 14 to 16 miles of the race at 8:15 mile pace, and they just completely shut down, completely hit the wall in those last few miles. So it's very, very important, if you do not want to hit the so-called wall, because you do not have to experience it. I've had other marathons. When I ran 2:19 at the California International Marathon, I didn't experience a wall. I didn't experience a wall at the 2011 Indianapolis Monumental Marathon. I ran 2:26.42 for 5th place there. Didn't hit a wall there, but I did have to jump in a porta-john, which completely screwed up my overall finish time. So also paying attention to what you're consuming the morning of the race, Make sure you preferably get your meal in around at least 2 hours before the race, and preferably 3 hours before the race. That way you have plenty of time for your body to digest that food and go to the restroom and not experience that type of mistake like I made at the 2011 Monumental Indianapolis Marathon. Still a great race, but just experienced that, and losing probably about 3 minutes off that finish time, really screwed me. But I still ran my second fastest marathon time ever. So you learn from these mistakes when it comes to how to not hit a marathon, or how to not hit the wall in the marathon distance, is training very, very effectively. Okay, not just focusing on mileage and thinking that the higher volume will yield a better and faster marathon time. Most of the time, long, slow distance running is just going to prepare you to be a very, very efficient, long, slow distance runner. Okay, so for the marathon distance, what I teach in all the courses that I have on RunDreamAchieve.com and my training programs, they're all heart rate based. Okay, we train at the anaerobic systems of the body. Whether it's if we're running aerobically and we're running very easy, we focus on that heart rate. If we're training more at our anaerobic threshold, we focus on spending a longer period of time extending that tempo run out to at least 10 miles, preferably out to closer to 15 miles in distance. Again, the more time you spend training at your anaerobic threshold, the more efficient you're going to get your body to be able to clear lactic acid faster than it's building up. You do not want to have lactic acid building up faster than you can clear it. And that's another big reason why a lot of marathoners, myself included, because I dealt with it too over the years, hit the wall. Because one, they're running out of glycogen, they're running out of sugars. Two, they haven't trained sufficiently at the paces that they're trying to race at. You're running way too fast for your capability. Okay, so if you do not want to experience the so-called wall in the marathon distance, if you do not want to experience a wall in the marathon, you need to train more specifically. You're going after a specific time, I take it, if you're trying to run, not hit the wall in your marathon. So you have to get very zeroed in, very focused, very immersed in the the pace per mile or the pace per kilometer you're wanting to run over that 26.2 mile, 42.2 kilometer event. And the best marathon runners, they're very, very efficient. You've seen them in your races. Preferably, you've probably had a few really great races yourself, but maybe you've experienced the wall. You see the top Europeans, top Americans, top Kenyans, Japanese, Chinese runners that are out there. They're very fluid. They're very in control. If you'll also notice they're taking in fluids in the race. They're not just sipping a couple Dixie cups. They're sitting there holding their drink and they're running with it. Now, a lot of times you and I've had a few times where I've been fortunate enough to have my own bottles sitting out on tables because I was one of the elite runners in the race. But a lot of other races, marathons, where all I could do was just grab a few Dixie cups and drink the whole contents of the cup. Don't just sip. If you have to stop briefly to grab a few cups, do so. But make sure you're drinking properly. You're taking in those gels, preferably around mile 7, mile 15, and around maybe around mile 20. Take about 3 of those in. Those are usually anywhere from 100 to 150 calories per gel. So if you're ingesting that, you're getting additional sugars in your system. You're providing more calories that your body desperately needs in the marathon distance, especially in the marathon, where there's so much stress that's placed on the body, and you're hydrating well enough. You will have a very, very, you'll be much more you will set yourself up definitely more for success in the marathon distance and not hit the wall if you're doing these things. I cannot stress this enough. Whatever particular pace you're trying to race at over this distance, get very, very comfortable being uncomfortable in training, okay? If you're trying, like I said, if it's a specific time you're trying to hit for the marathon distance, you have got to master that race pace. And you do not want to have that race pace feel aggressive. You want it to feel moderately hard, but not to the point where you cannot hold that pace for 15 miles. You need to be able to, or 16 kilometers. You need to be able to sustain that pace from start to finish. You do not want to experience the wall, because I guarantee you, and if you've already experienced it yourself, you already know how difficult it is. It doesn't matter how motivated you are. It doesn't matter how many miles you ran leading up to those 4 months of training leading into your race. It doesn't matter after the race that you say to your friends and family, well, I was on my given pace for 20 miles, but that doesn't count at the end of the race. So make sure you're paying attention to those critical aspects of your marathon distance and your marathon performance. Like I said, the best and most successful marathon runners they don't experience the wall. They finish the race most of the time looking like they're just out for a light workout, and they make it look that way because they've spent so many miles, so much time training at paces that are way faster than they actually raced at in the marathon. They didn't hit the wall because they trained so much faster for such a long period of time leading up to that marathon distance, that marathon race, that they didn't hit a wall. So you don't have to experience that, but again, it goes back to the fundamentals of making sure you're practicing your hydration in training, making sure that you're practicing seeing how much fluid you can actually take in during your workout, training at speeds that are much faster, preferably around 20 to 30 seconds faster than race pace, doing those hard VO2 max workouts on the track where you're training close to your 3K to 10K race pace, and extending the amount of time you're training at your anaerobic threshold. That is the point that we usually race at. That's the intensity that we usually race at. So it's very important to get very efficient at spending longer periods of time training at your tempo effort, your anaerobic threshold. And don't neglect the mental aspect of the marathon distance. Make sure you're visualizing yourself succeeding, visualizing yourself running at the paces that you're trying to sustain, and doing the things that you think you're actually incapable of doing. A lot of times I would dream of breaking, I had this crazy idea that I would break 2 hours and 15 minutes. And I think the more I visualize myself running 2:14, 59 or faster, I really think that helped me eventually break the 2:20 marathon barrier, because I was a 2:43 marathoner, but I was really thinking of sub 2:15, and I was thinking, okay, my plan B is really sub 2:22. If I break 2:20, that's going to be incredible, but I think I definitely have the capability of breaking 2:15. Ultimately, I never ran that fast, but I do know that visualization was a very important key piece of my preparation. So make sure you're doing these things properly, putting in that heavy effort in training, and you will set yourself up for success. Share this video with as many people as you know. It really helps not only the channel grow, but just to get the word out to other athletes that may be having issues with experiencing a wall in the marathon, and some of the things that they need to be doing, need to be thinking about in order to be a more successful marathon specialist. So leave a comment below if you have a question, or if there's a topic you want me to make on my next video, or if you have a specific issue with even some of the things I've talked about here on the video. Feel free to leave me a comment and let me know. I love dialogue with commenters and people that visit the RunDreamAchieve.com website. If you're looking for a specific training schedule or a professional running course, and you want to invest in yourself, go to RunDreamAchieve.com, click on training programs. There's drop downs for 5K, 10K, half marathon, and marathon specialist, as well as running courses that I've created for half marathon and marathon runners. So wish you guys all the best, and I will talk to you guys on the next video.